You might. Is a handsome young rabbi from Brooklyn. It's Meyer.
What's his name? Meyer what?
Meyer Kahana.
Oh, so okay. It's hard
That's
to
my
see.
cousin.
Maybe
Yeah.
it's cut off. I can't see a full picture.
You can see the you can see the eyebrows.
That's all. I can't see above it.
Yeah.
Now you recognize them by their eyebrows.
So just me on YouTube. Oh, there we go. 4. Okay. All right. So we're gonna mute everybody.
Yeah.
And we'll get started. I have a few announcements. All right. So Alex, let's mute. Okay. Welcome everyone. We'll get started. Thank you for coming. I see we have an international cast of guests today, so I'm very excited. We have Finland and Israel and a couple of Canadians, so this is exciting. So welcome to the May meeting of the Jewish Genealogy Society of Long Island. And that's not good. Go away, go away, go away. All right, I'll put this up instead. And I'm gonna just share this. Okay, so welcome to our group. Oh, okay. So welcome to the Jewish Genealogy Society meeting. I'm Bonnie Burns, the president. This is our May meeting, and we have a great speaker for you. Okay, you can see the live closed captioning has been enabled. You are able to control it yourself, whether you want it on or off, or bigger or smaller, or read it continuously. So those are your choices, but it is enabled for those who require or choose to. And sometimes if you can't hear the speaker, just turn on the closed captioning. Again, this is the JGS LI. We have an out-of-town membership, so we do record our meetings, and if you are a member, you have access to watch them on our members only site, as well as the handouts after the meetings will be available there as well. And as a benefit of membership, we have a monthly newsletter called JGS LI Online, which gives timely notices of webinars and databases, and our thrice a year lineage newsletter that goes out. So the due date for articles for this month is next week. So if you have something interesting to write about, we'd love to hear from you. If you have member news, simchas or anything, we'd love to hear that too. Place them in our newsletter. So let us know. Anna Moza, who is our tip of the month speaker, is our editor. So you can contact her. And we also have our Vibrant Facebook page, which is now up to 967 members, or pushing 1,000. I'm hoping soon enough we'll get to 1,000 members. But when I get notices of other groups' meetings, I like to post them there so you can find them. So come join us on Facebook. Okay, so next weekend is Memorial Day. So happy Memorial Day, and take note of what it stands for, and who we're honoring and remembering, as well as the first day off since President's Day, so take some time to recharge as well. So this is a list of the rest of the meetings we have upcoming for the rest of the season. So Debbie will be here next on a Wednesday in June, and our June meeting, Roni Golan, in June. And then we've added 2 Wednesday night meetings in the summer. We're not going to do we don't do Sunday meetings, but we've added Wednesday night. And we actually just booked August 18th. And I'm going to tell you something about that in a second. And we also, the dates at the bottom, those are our fall meeting days. So there won't be a Wednesday in September with all the holidays, but we'll have October, November, and December for Wednesday nights, and our regular Sunday meetings as well. So I just wanted to mention this to you. So Jeff Wallach is an author, and he wrote a book. It's about 2 brothers who do a DNA test, and they find out something interesting. So it's a mystery, but it's a DNA mystery. And Jeff's actually from Long Island, although he lives out in Portland now. So this is exciting. So the story actually takes place on Long Island as well. So it'll be very interesting. We can talk to Jeff and find out how he got interested in writing about DNA, and his motivation and things like that. So that'll be exciting. So mark that for our August meeting. And then the other thing that's coming up, of course, is the International Genealogy Conference in the summer. It is now Sunday through Thursday, so they did add an extra day because it went all virtual. These are the prices for the full attendance and then the limited access attendances. And then there's an early bird, so June 10th. So you got like 3 weeks to pay the early bird price, or it goes up. The limited access is the so the free access is just like the Jewish Gen annual meeting and the IAJGS annual meeting. And then the limited accesses will get used to some of the SIG and BOF, the special interest group and bird of a feather meetings, if you don't know those acronyms yet. And so if you want to attend those types of meetings, there's a limited access pass too. And for $18, you can go to as many of the SIG and BOF meetings as you want. So it's a great opportunity. They just asked me today if I want to be a moderator, and you'll see me doing this probably at IAJGS again, like I did last year. So come join us. Actually, there's a video that Judy did about how it's all going to be set up. So you can look for that. I think it's through Jewish Gen. And she explained like it's a whole site now, like you'll go in and it's almost like you're in a hotel, the conference center, and you can get to the various meetings and the vendor booths and things like that. So it's a little bit more involved than it was last year, but it definitely should be a lot of fun. Okay, so that leads us to today's tip of the month. And we have Ann Armoza, who's going to talk to you about a lot of sites you can use on Facebook. So let's unmute Ann and I will share the screen. And we have Ann.
I asked her to unmute.
Okay. Ann, you there?
She's a co-host, so she should be able to. Oh.
Okay, got me now?
Yep, now I hear you.
I have a lot of friends on Facebook. Some of them spend their lives on Facebook. Some of my friends wouldn't be caught dead on Facebook, but I find some really interesting genealogical things on Facebook. So I just want to mention some of the pages that I find all the time. Tracing the Tribe is probably the granddaddy of all of them. There's about 38,000 members on that page. People post questions. They answer other people's questions. They have questions about what's on this manifest. I can't read the English, the words. Can you translate it for me? I can't read the language. Can you translate it? The administrators of this site are well-known genealogists. I'm not going to repeat them. They're on the page here. The Jewish Genealogy Portal was started by Melissa Mendelsohn. Jewish Genealogy Portal was another site I look at very often. Again, the same kind of stuff. Can you translate this for me? I found this gravestone. I find things about what's going on in Europe for cemeteries and things. It's just really interesting reading. And then the Jewish Genealogy Surname Project, which was started by Melissa Mendelsohn. There is a list that she started of your name, what names you are looking for, what countries, what villages. You still can get on this, but this is another general site for answering and posing questions right now. I put in the Museum of Family History also because I find that really interesting. There's some really interesting articles and some films that I saw yesterday from the Steven Spielberg archives on before World War II, what life was like in various European countries. Another one I like really is Blood and Frogs, Jewish Genealogy and More. There's a compendium on there, and that's by, that compendium is by different countries that have Jewish populations. I was looking yesterday for Slovakia because that's one of my research groups. I didn't put this on the handout, but there's a Facebook page for Slovakia Jewish Genealogy. There's the Knowles Collection, Jews of Bratislava, the Slovakia Church and Synagogue Records. There's a history resources on here. There's a website for Slovak Jewish heritage, all sorts of resources that you can tap into if you're looking for these individual countries. Then there are the specialized sites, and I put some of them down. There are a lot more of them. The Belarus Jewish Genealogy and Ancestral Travel by Yuri Dorn. The Sephardic Diaspora. There's one for Romanian Jews. There's a Jewish DNA for genealogy and family research. There's the German SIG, Jewish Special Interest Group. There's Jews from Posen and Prussia, Jews from Bukovina, the Stulak Lomza Independent Jewish Genealogy Research Group, Jewish Genealogy, Poland, Polish Jewish Roots, Russian Jewish Genealogy, Americans of Sephardic Ancestry, who are pursuing Spanish and Portuguese citizenship. And I don't know why they're doing that, but they're doing it. I didn't want this to go on too long. There's lots more. And Blood and Frogs is one. And then at the end, I do have websites for JGSLI, the New York Genealogy Society, and there's a website, excuse me, I have to find the page, for the International Association of Jewish Genealogy Societies. And their page has a listing of all the genealogy societies, and you can tell if they have a Facebook page or website, it's listed in a drop-down menu. These are all interesting sites to go into and just worth looking at. There's probably a lot more that I haven't mentioned, but I would give it a try if you haven't done it already.
Great, thanks, Anne. And don't forget our site, we're at 967, going for 1,000. Okay, so I'm actually going to introduce our Vice President of Programming, Jeff Austin, who is going to introduce today's speaker. So can we unmute Jeff?
Here I am. So thank you, Anne. I'm going to add one more site because I go into it quite a bit. Is Jewish Genealogy in Ukraine Facebook site. So just another one that's very specific. So anyway, Banai Lynn Feldstein is a professional genealogist based in Salt Lake City, Utah, specializing in Jewish and Eastern European research. She earned a bachelor's degree in computer science with a focus on programming, a skill she uses to create genealogy websites. She has been a volunteer with Utah JGS since 2004 and has contributed to IAJGS and their conference as a volunteer and speaker since 2007. Banai, I hope you don't mind, I borrowed from your website. Banai has expressed an interest in personal genealogy starting in the 4th grade when she created a family tree for a school project. She resumed her family history research in 1998 and has since uncovered countless cousins unknown to her immediate family, followed by numerous weddings and bar and bat mitzvahs. She expanded her research with a trip to Eastern Europe in 2012, visiting many ancestral towns and homes and local archives. By 2020, her family tree was up to 8,000 names. Banai moved to Salt Lake City in 2003 to be close to the family history library. She subsequently joined the Utah JGS and served as president from 2009 to 2015. She's been active with IAJGS conferences, serving as conference co-chair in 2014 for the Salt Lake City event and as webmaster for more recent conferences. I'm very pleased to present Banai Feldstein speaking today on Search as an Art.
I should unmute myself. All right. Well, it is a great time to be a genealogist. There are so many records that have been indexed and digitized, and all you need is internet access to get to them. And you can go to the websites and just put in the name of the ancestor you're looking for and find lots of records. But this presentation is about the ones that you can't find so easily. Now, there are some that there aren't records. Sometimes records never existed. Sometimes records have been destroyed. I can't help you find those, but hopefully I will give you some tips that will help you find some of the elusive records that they do exist. They are in the collections. Some of them are even indexed. You're just having trouble finding them because they're not indexed well, or they were written really messy, and maybe they're just wrong and you need to search them in a different way. So the first tip is an old tip. Now, I went looking for this. I remember finding this online about 20 years ago, and I can't find it anymore, but it's still possibly good. I don't use it a lot myself. Some of these tips I use more than others, but my first suggestion is to try alternate characters, because the old handwriting sometimes is really hard to read, and also hard to index. For example, I was indexing some Hungarian records a couple years ago, I guess, and I came across letters that looked like this. Now, what letter is this, right? It looks like an R, right? It's actually the name Klein. But someone who's completely unfamiliar with the name, I mean, they might be able to figure it out if they looked at this name, but if you're looking at a different name that's not so obvious what the name might be, someone might index that as an R just because it looks like one. Here's another example of another name with another K that looks like an R. And this doesn't look like a K to me. I got used to them after a while. And just for contrast, I did find another name that has an R, and you can see it also looks like an R. This is a very distinctive looking R. Not all of them looked this much different than the Ks. So someone not familiar with the names might just index what it looks like to them at first glance. And sometimes a lot of the records are indexed by people who are not familiar with the names. So you have to think of what the name might look like in the handwriting that it's in and try to search on that letter maybe. Here's another example. I was looking for this specifically and I found actually the first three names on the page were great examples. This is from a ship list. Now, if you look at that second name, that second example, what letter is that? I learned to write in cursive in third grade, and there was no letter in cursive that looked like that. Now, the group that's here will probably recognize the names pretty easily. The second one is Schleimer. So now you know it's an S. And the third one is Israel. But before you saw the name, or if you weren't familiar with the name, you might not know what that actually says. And who knows what you might index it as. Now that first name, that's a little trickier because I'm still not 100% sure what it's supposed to say. Because on ellisisland.org, it's indexed as Liwick, whatever that's supposed to be. And on the certificate of arrival for this person, it's listed as Zervi. Now her name was Sivia, so I can see the I-V-I-E. That makes sense. I don't think there's an R in there. And maybe it is a Z, but this was an odd one. And there were no other names on the page that you could match this to and try to figure out the handwriting. And as you can see, just from these two examples, two different people looked at it and wrote down what they thought it said. And both of them are very different. So if you're looking for her, I found her by her surname. If you're looking for her by a given name, you're going to have a really hard time finding it. Another example I was looking for, I found, again, three guys on the same page. These are from Chernovitz, and these records are in German and Romanian, depending on the year. And I didn't even pay attention on this particular page which language they were in. But you can see, I think everyone here can see, these are Isaac and Jacob. But the index is a little bit different. Now, the index of these records was created from the handwritten index and not from the actual records. So it could be written a little different in the index. But the first one is indexed as JSAC. And the second one is YSAC. And then Jacob is with a K in the index. And it did say Jacob Dove on the record. I just cropped it out. So on these records, if you're searching for someone whose name starts with an I or a J or a Y, you might be searching for a name that's not going to come up. Because not every search engine has a really complicated algorithm that can find Isaac spelled with a J if you're searching for Isaac spelled with an I. And in a lot of European languages, sometimes, especially these three letters, I, J, and Y, are interchangeable. And a lot of them will look the same in the handwriting, and it's hard to tell them apart. And not only is it hard to tell them apart, but your indexer also has to be able to tell them apart the same way that you do, and they don't always do that. So sometimes you might want to try searching with the wrong letter that looks similar to the same letter. And this also happens in lowercase letters. When I was doing those Hungarian records, I felt really good about the Jewish names I indexed. I'm pretty sure I got those 98% correct at least, but there was one name I was unfamiliar with, and eventually I found an entry of it in a completely different handwriting where it was very distinct that the letters C and E were different. And I discovered I had been spelling the name wrong. And I can't find the example of the early record and then the one that was written well, because I actually went back and corrected the index on the earlier entries. So I couldn't find that first one that was good. So you want to think about the old handwriting, what those letters look like, which ones look the same. S, I, and L in the ship list a lot are hard to tell apart. In Polish, I, J, and Y are very interchangeable and often look the same. In the Hungarian, the K and the R in the capitals. And in pretty much all of them, the E and the C can be mistaken for each other. U and N and M and W. And I won't even get into Cyrillic because there's about 12 letters in Cyrillic that can all look like each other. So this is an older tip that you might not use as often, but it's still good to think about it when you're having trouble finding the records you're looking for. So the next tip is also similar in that you should try wildcards. A lot of websites let you use wildcards to search, which means you put in the name, but you don't put in the whole name. You put in part of the name and you put in something like an asterisk. Usually it's an asterisk now that replaces a part of the name. It can replace 0 letters to as many letters as it can replace. Some sites will also have a question mark option, which will replace 1 character. Now, 20 years ago, every site had a different wildcard character, but they pretty much converged on the asterisk and question mark. And this can be used to simulate another tip that I'm going to come to later. But you can use this to search. If you have the ability to use the wildcards, you can use these instead of substituting the letters as the first tip. But sometimes you don't have the wildcard. It depends on the website. Like the really big websites, they're going to let you do that. And a medium-sized website might let you do that. But if you're on a smaller website, it's a smaller organization, maybe a genealogy society indexed something and you're searching through it, and they don't have a very complicated search engine, you might not get to use the wildcard, but you might also get to use it because it's not actually that hard to program if someone has written the program rather than they've just downloaded a program that they found somewhere. So one of the uses of a wildcard could be something like on JRI Poland. The first name here, Mulejewicz, is one of my family's surnames. I am convinced that everyone with that surname is related to me, because so far, almost everyone in their database has connected to the family. But every so often, I would find some stray family in another town somewhere that I couldn't connect to the main family. There's records missing in between families. There's records missing from some of the small villages. And one day on a deep dive trying to figure out if there were any other records that might work, I searched different ways and I found the name spelled with an O instead of an E in the middle. And when I searched JRI, even in the phonetic spelling, it doesn't find the second spelling using the first and vice versa. Now, I don't know what kind of a search doesn't let you interchange a vowel, but apparently either the Beta Morse or the Dach Mokotov, I'm sure I was using one or the other, it just doesn't find the other name. And this would be a good place to try an asterisk, to try the wild card. Of course, you don't always know that you have to try the wild card to find other spellings, but if you're looking for more records, that's something you might try. Now, some names are especially difficult to find things. I had a client named Geroliman. I didn't look up how he spelled it, but I know his database spelled it a whole bunch of different ways, and the records each spelled it in a different way. Sometimes it ended in man, sometimes men, sometimes mon. And I already knew that vowels were sometimes a problem on some of these sites. So I ended up searching this name using wildcards for every space that had vowels. And I found more search results that way, which is good because that's what I was looking for. I also found other families that were not his, but I found more of his records that way. And without the asterisks, without the wildcards, I was not finding all of the variations of the spelling. Unfortunately, even in the big websites, they don't find them for you. So my next tip is don't assume the type of search. So this might be a little more complicated to explain. Ancestry and Family Search and MyHeritage and the really big sites, they have a very extensive search algorithm. They take the name you're searching, and I believe that they send it through a database before they actually search for records. They send it to a name database. So they look for similar names, they look for alternate names, they look for certain various spellings for the names, and then they search their records for those, I think. But you don't know what they're doing in the background. You don't know what the algorithm is doing exactly. So you don't know if it's searching in a certain way. For example, US Soundex. I don't think we use this that much anymore now that we have so much on the internet. But if you go back 20 years and you had to go to NARA or the Municipal Archive or any other library, you probably had to use US Soundex to find things, which these are the basic rules. That you start with the first letter, you drop the vowels and a few letters, and then you replace the consonants with digits. So every US Soundex is a letter and 3 numbers. And the only one I know offhand is Feldstein, which is F432. Because I used to name my file that. So the thing is, the big websites don't use US Soundex when you're searching them, even if they tell you they do. Now, I discovered this some years ago, searching for a family. I was searching for Mary Violet and her family. She married my great uncle Louis. And way back in the day, they spelled the name Violet like the color. And then eventually they added a T onto the end of it. And then they added another E. They got a little fancier over time. And all 3 of these spellings have the exact same Soundex code. Now I've given this presentation before. It's been a few years, but I said this in the presentation once, and someone went and asked somebody at Ancestry, do you guys search on US Soundex? And the answer came back, of course we do. But I had just searched on their site right before that lecture, and they did not find US Soundex results. I did not actually check Ancestry just before this presentation, but I did verify with Family Search, and I doubt Ancestry has changed theirs. So again, this is the name I discovered it on. I was searching for George Violet, her father, and I had a good wide range for his birth year. And searching on his name with the earliest spelling they used, just spelled like the color, I came up with 4 results. And you can see none of them matches the exact spelling. Some of them have the 2 T's in the spelling. When I searched with the extra T, I got the exact same results. Now, in the past, the results came in a slightly different order, but when I just did this recently, they came in the exact order. So their search algorithm has changed slightly over time. When I searched with the extra E, this is when I got completely different results. Now I have 5 results. And none of these are the same results that I got searching with the name, searching on the name without the E at the end. Now remember, they're all the same US Soundex code, and you would think maybe that you would find them, but you don't. The first result here is actually who I was looking for. And here they list the relationships on Family Search, and you can see one of the children is Mary, which is the one who married into my family. And of course, since we're genealogists, we want to see the actual record. And you can see the handwriting's not terrific on everything, but Here's the family spelled with the fancy spelling with the extra TTE at the end. But I couldn't find this until I spelled it the way that they were spelling it. Because Family Search, and now I think I was looking on this one mostly on Family Search at the time. They don't use US Soundex, and sometimes you have to use the exact spelling you're looking for to find things that are similar. Now, there are many types of Soundex. Some of these, when I looked this up originally, I'd never heard of. I love how New York State has their own. US Soundex is probably the most used in the country, although Jewish Gen and let's see, JRI Poland and Gesher Galicia, I think, has Beta Morse built in, but Jewish Gen and JRI Poland both have Dech Mokotov and Beta Morse. And I can't say for sure any other SIGs that have their own search engines, but they might have those built in. And those are the Dech Mokotov and the Beta Morse are done specifically for Jewish names or European names, where they try to match some of those similar letters. Remember, I, J, and Y are kind of interchangeable in some languages. Plus, they look at things like Hebrew, where the Hebrew names that are with a P, the P sound and the F sound are the same letter. So they also account for that kind of thing with European names. So Family Search and Ancestry, as far as I've checked, do not use US Soundex, but they do have some kind of Soundex searching, not US Soundex, but other things. They find similar names. And as I said, Jewish Gen has Dech Mokotov and Beta Morse. And US Soundex is built into PHP and MySQL, which is the most common database and the most common programming language on the internet. So it was kind of a surprise to me when I discovered that the big sites didn't use Soundex, but I did put it into mine when I wrote my own search engine. So I don't have Dech Mokotov and Beta Morse, but I do have US Soundex. So at least there's that. So the next tip is you can simulate this one if you have wildcards, but a lot of sites will actually give you this option anyway. And it's to try starts with, ends with, or contains. Now, I know some of the searches on the Steve Morse website, some of the default settings in some of the fields, like given names especially, will have starts with as the default, which you can change if you want, but I usually just leave it. And if you don't have this option, but you have wildcards, you can just put the wildcard symbol at the beginning or the end or at both ends to simulate this. And this is good. This is one that I should use more because I've sometimes skipped past this one and done another and discovered that if I'd done starts with or ends with, I would have found the record I needed faster and fewer results. But I tend to skip it sometimes when I shouldn't. If you have a name that maybe has more distinctive letters in it, like a lot of letters can kind of mush together and look similar, while other letters are a little more distinctive, like if somebody writes the letter, unless their handwriting is really atrocious, you can always tell certain letters are certain letters. Maybe you want to put an asterisk, you want to put the wildcards around those distinctive letters, which could be at the beginning or the end or the middle. Some sites might not give you wildcards, but might give you these options. So it's a similar, but you just can't put wildcards in the middle if they don't allow that. So I'm going to show you a slightly different result from this, and it's actually from my own website, where I have the Ursgerod voter list indexed. So you can see right under the names, you have the options for exact, begins with, ends with, contains, and US Soundex search. I also have wildcards. There's somewhere on the site that says you can use wildcards. If you search, for example, the name Klein, I didn't design this to have Klein at the beginning and in the middle, but it just turned out that way. If you search Klein in this list, you'll find 90 people with the name Klein. Because there's a lot of Kleins, it's a common name in the area. However, if you search starts with Klein, you get 177 entries, almost twice as many, because the women are listed as Kleinova. because this is what they've done in these records is they've got these suffixes on the women's names. This is a feature of some European languages. And I actually wrote in the description of the database that I do a blog post for each database. And I wrote specifically, you should try, we recommend using begins with to search surnames because ova gets added to the end of names, or the Y at the end of a name can be changed to an A. And this is common in Cyrillic names, as well as apparently Czech, because this was a voter list in Czech. So sometimes the starts with, or even using the wild card at the end, can give you a lot more results just because of things like this. And this is especially good for European names. So the search I use a little more often than starts with and ends with is searching without a surname. Now this is a tricky one because you get a lot more results, right? But what you want to do is narrow down the search some. You want to put in the given name. Now, I do this a lot on Ancestry. You can do quite a bit on Family Search. Each site has different fields you can do. On Ancestry, you can put in the given name and the birth year and the birthplace, and I will put parents, I will put spouses, children, siblings, whatever I know, because I'm usually searching something like a census. And unfortunately, you can't do that with the ship list, but that works with those too. On Family Search, you can't do children or siblings, but you can do parents and spouses, and I will put as many details as I can to try to come up with a result. Now, I would love to show a whole bunch of examples of this, but I do it so often I don't keep the examples around. I do have some to show though. So the thing is, when you don't have a surname, you could get a lot of search results. So you want to narrow it down with as many other details as possible, which sometimes will eliminate the result you want because the detail you put in is not what's in the record, which is unfortunate, but you want to do that. And then you want to take away some of the details to try to find the result you want. But I have a specific example here of searching without a surname when you really should not search with a surname, because I was looking for the Wilson family. This was for a client, and the family was named Wilson in America, and he couldn't find anything for them before America, and he believed, or maybe he knew, that they had changed their surname. He didn't know what it was. He didn't know when it was changed. So I did some research. I had some US records on them, so I knew who was in the family. I knew about when they arrived. I was hoping they all came together, because it's easier to find families in the ship list than individuals. Sometimes the father will come first and then bring the rest of the family later, and it's always harder to find him usually. Because when I'm searching for people on ship lists, unlike the censuses, you can't put in all the names of the family members and hope that it'll find them together because they're not indexed that way. So you have to search for the individuals. And I usually try to search for the kids. It's sort of a bonus tip. When I'm searching, especially when I'm searching without a surname, I look for the kids. And on the ship lists and on the censuses, there's a lot more kids, but on the ship list, there's a lot fewer people who are 5 years old than there are 20s and 30s. So if you're looking for a 5-year-old or a 2-year-old on the ship list, you're more likely to find them because there won't be nearly as many. And if you can find them just by their given name and their year of birth, you have a better chance. So I didn't know exactly what ship they came on, or exactly when they arrived, or even if they were all together, or what names they had on the ship list. Now, they were actually coming from England. So I am not sure, I don't remember exactly everything that I searched, but I searched for the kids. So I didn't know what name Susie came under, so I tried Susie, and I think I tried a couple other S names and her age, and I didn't find her. And then I tried Samuel, and given the result, I'm not sure why I didn't find them under Samuel. Maybe there were just too many Samuels because it's common. I might have also looked under Shlomo because I know that's a name that usually becomes Samuel in America. And when I got to Jean or Jenny, somehow I found a result, which I was grateful for, because I didn't have any more people to search in the kids. I would have to search for Morris and Rose they were like in their 20s or 30s on the ship list. And there would be a lot of Morrises and Roses on the ship list. So I found them, and you can see they are listed as Morris and Rose, and Susie was Sissy. Samuel was Samuel, so I don't know why I didn't find him. It could just be that there were too many of them. And Jean was listed as Jane. And you can see that the ship list was 1895, so their ages are matching up. And their name was Weinberg. And if I had tried to search this with the surname, which I'm sure I did just to see if it was there, I never would have found the Wilson family as Weinberg. I had to search them without the surname, but I found the whole family together, which was great because I didn't have to search anymore for them. And I was able to tell the client the name was originally Weinberg. And I was also able to find a couple of British records because he wanted proof that they were there too. So in this case, searching without the surname was really the only way to find the record. Sometimes you search without the surname just because not necessarily it's the only way to find the record because you don't know what surname is there. It's just that you don't know how it's indexed, or you don't know how it's spelled badly that it got indexed badly. So the next tip is try another site and try another time. So I'm going to tell you about my cousin Ludwig. I found this index card for him. You might recognize the kind of card that it is. It is a naturalization index. And there are tons of these on Ancestry. And all it gives you is the name and that number. There's no date. Sometimes it's easier to figure out what court it is, but sometimes it's really hard to figure out the court. And I looked at this and I said, how do I find this? And I could never find this record for years and years. But every so often I came back to Ludwig and I put his name into the search engine. And one day, something that I'd never seen before came up. I found his naturalization. And he naturalized in Nashville. What was he doing in Nashville? I had no idea that he had been there. He was there, either he was training or he was stationed there because he joined the Army. So he became a citizen because he was in the US Army, which is why he was in Nashville. I was not expecting this. This is the kind of thing that you love, that so many things are indexed now, because I would never have looked for him here. But still, that index card bugged me. It still existed. Where the heck was it? The petition did not come with a declaration. Was that index card the declaration? The problem is we didn't have that court's records declarations as a record set. So there was no way to find it. We only had petitions. We didn't have declarations for the right year. So about a month or two ago, I put his name in the search engine again as I got curious about other things. And I found his declaration. And I've been looking for this for years. And you can see he's listed here as Kara Feldstein. He was living with my grandparents. And this matches the index card. So I had to wait, I don't know, 10 years to find the record. I knew there was something out there because I'd found the index card, but sometimes you just have to wait a while to find the records. And sometimes you have to check another site. So we're going to talk about my Lenskys. I should have put their names here, but I didn't. I was looking for the Lenskys. I think I was very determined to find more records on them because they had two sons named Harry and Henry. And I think at the time I was trying to verify if they really had two sons or if it was the same son listed under both names, because sometimes people came to America and they went by one name or the other, and you didn't know. So I thought, now I was looking this up recently as an example of searching in different ways, of searching maybe without a surname or something. And when I found this record, I realized that's not how I found it. That can't be how I found it unless Ancestry has destroyed their index. I think I found this record by searching on the address. I looked up the address, I looked up the district it was in, and I found a page on Ancestry that looked like this. Can't really read that, can you? No. I wasn't sure if this was the family I was looking for. I think I had matched the address. Now, if you look at how it's indexed, now I did include the two people above them because even on this version, I can see that it says Clara, not Mans Greenberg. And are these the Lenskys indexed as QC, and they don't even have given names, WA, and apparently one's Floridian, maybe? I don't know. So this index doesn't help me find the record. And Ancestry has this thing about whitening their backgrounds. And I think it might be for reducing the file sizes, which I can understand that. The problem is sometimes they whiten the background and they lose the handwriting. So at the time that I found this some years ago, they were the only ones who had the New York State Census indexed and any images online. So I went to the Family History Library because I wanted to know if this was actually them because I couldn't read it. And I looked it up on film and I scanned it in and it looks beautiful. It's perfectly readable. I can read the names clearly. The handwriting's a little messy on some letters, but clearly this was my Lensky family. I was looking for Max and Ida and Harry and Henry listed separately. So now I knew they definitely were two people. I don't remember if this was the record that verified that, but it helped verify it if I didn't already know that. But here's an example of I found something on Ancestry I wasn't sure of. I checked Family Search and found it. Now, Ancestry and Family Search actually share a lot of records and databases. So they might even have the exact same database, but they might have different record scans. And each site has their own search algorithm. So even if you're searching the exact same database for something, you might find it on one site if you don't find it on the other, just because the search algorithm is a little different and it gives you different kinds of results. So the bonus tip, I kind of mentioned this earlier, is to add and remove details, especially when you're searching without the surname. Put in the birth date, put in the birthplace, put in as many relatives as you can, and then eventually start taking some of those out. Because sometimes too many details will make you lose the information you're looking for. Maybe something is not indexed. Maybe something isn't the detail that you think should be in the record. Maybe it's not in the record correctly. And sometimes the database is the problem. Now, this is a slightly older example, so that the screenshot is older. It looks a little, I think Ancestry looks a little different in each screenshot I have sometimes, unless I just did a new one. I was looking for Annie Miller. I had her born about 1899, and every record I had said she was in Brooklyn. So I was searching in Kings County in the 1915 New York State Census. Again, this was back when, I'm sure this was back when only Ancestry had this one online. And it found me no results for somebody named Miller. And you can see that I'm searching everything broadly except for the location. I wanted only results in Brooklyn. Well, there have to be Millers in Brooklyn, right? So what I did is I took Kings County out and made that a broader search. And suddenly I found a whole bunch of results. And as you can see, several of them are in Kings County. So in this case, I had to remove some of the details because the search engine had its wires crossed. It let me put in data to search a field that existed in the database, but it wasn't actually searching the field. It was, something was going wrong on the back end, and it was searching for something else, or it was messing up the search somehow because I demanded only people in Kings County. So sometimes you have to take data out because the record doesn't have it in it, or the record has different information than you think it should have. And sometimes you might find a database where the wires are a little bit crossed. So you have to finesse your search to work with the website. Now, another tip is an oldie for the internet also. It also works on Google, is don't stop at page 1 results. Don't give up. If they give you 56,000 results, you're not going to look through all 56,000, but you could look through a few pages. If they give you 500 results, if you've got it narrowed down that much, I would say go ahead and look through those. I've certainly looked through 200, 300, 500 before. Because what you need might be several pages down. Genealogy search engines have weighted databases. That's how I describe it, that they're going to show you certain results first. Now, I haven't paid enough attention recently to know if this is still true, but a few years back, everything was weighted towards the 1940 census. That was always the first thing they showed you. I'm not sure if they're doing that, but I bet they'll start it up again for 1950 when that one comes out. So you would get a whole bunch of 1940 results before you get anything else. So I'm going to show you an extreme example of this. I was searching the name Krzywkowski, one of these lovely Polish names that has one vowel in the middle of it. And this is on Family Search, and you can see the first 3 results are the name I'm looking for, and they're passenger lists. Okay. The next 2 results are not the same name, but there's something somewhat similar in the 1940 census. Well, it turned out that I had to go all the way to page 70 to find a result that was not the 1940 census. Now, this is extreme that it was 70 pages and none of them were the exact name. But this is what they do. Certain databases will show up first in the search results. And they probably do that deliberately, I'm sure. On my search engine, I don't do a weighted database. I'm pretty sure mine sorts by date. But on these bigger sites, they might want to feature the 1940 census, and next year they might feature the 1950 census, or maybe they decide to feature a different database that they want to be the first in the results. And you need to go past it. The alternative, besides going through 70 pages, is clicking over to collections. And I know Ancestry has this kind of a feature too, but I don't use it much. I usually go into the collection that I want, whereas Family Search, I'll switch over to the Collections tab and choose which records I want. Because you can come here and say, just give me 1940 census or just 1930 census. You can open up these lists and you can see there's 265 things in here in birth, marriage, and death. They found me thousands and thousands of results on the name Krzywkowski, and there's probably only 3 exact results in their entire database at the time. But they gave me thousands of results, and I could choose which databases to look in through the collections. That would help. So that's the main tips. Now I'm going to show you, this is a little fun part here. I call this is why you can't find your people. I'm going to show you some search results. Some of these are a little older. I've given this presentation a few times, and I've kept in some of the old examples because they're good, because they're funny sometimes. And I've got some new ones in here too. So here is a search result from the 1915 New York State Census on Ancestry. And if you look at these names, if your people are on this page, you're not going to find them by searching on their name, not even if you drop the surname, because there's almost nothing left of their names here. I don't know why this page is so bad. I don't have the image of this one, unfortunately. I'd have to go searching for it to find it. But this is one of my older examples. Sometimes the index is just really bad. And the New York State Census is on Ancestry. I have found, certainly, I don't know if they've redone any of them, but I know earlier years, some of these indexes were really bad. I don't know why they did such a bad job on some of them, but certain pages, they're just almost nonsense for the names. So this was a curiosity. I was searching specifically in the database of Detroit border crossings, and I had several results of people arriving in Ireland. Not really sure why, but getting their wires crossed somehow. I do have a few things from Ancestry here that you might not see, and this might be one of them. Here I was looking for New York passenger lists, and I was, this is where I'm looking for someone, and I've taken out the surname, I've taken out the given name. I'm just searching for when they're born, when they arrive. And I'm saying, I want people born in Russia. I think I had the ship name. That's what I was looking for here. And all of my results, none of them is someone born in Russia. Well, I mean, the Hebrews might be, but it doesn't say. And it doesn't even have my ship name in this result. So I don't really know what they're searching sometimes. This was a fun name to find. I think it says Freema. That makes sense to me, but I definitely don't see a P in her surname. I don't know what somebody was thinking when they indexed this. What is this? This is just someone who can't really read the handwriting, writing whatever they think it looks like maybe at first glance. And then we have to try to find these people. And that's the hard part, when we have people who can't read the handwriting, people who aren't familiar with the names. Now here's another one. This actually has two things to point out. So we have this family, it looks like it says Rishitsky family, Shalom Malka. I am not entirely sure what that next name says, and then Fagel. But also look at the guy after them, Hirsch. And I think everyone in this group can probably read that it says Steinberg. So when you look at how it's indexed, you see that Shalom is listed as Shalom Shalom, and then there's Malka Malka, and whatever they've decided that middle name says. I don't know, it looks maybe like it should have been Pesach. I'm not really sure what that name should be. And then Fagel Fagel. So if this is your family and you're searching by the surname, you are not going to find them, because there are surnames on the rest of these names on this page. I don't know what the indexer could have been doing that on this family alone on the page, they skipped over the surname and they just put the given name in again. But if you look at the name right after this family and you see how they spelled Steinberg, if you're searching on that name by any part of the first half of the name, I don't think anything on Ancestry is going to match Stein on what they've indexed here. So here we have a UK outward passenger list. Again, I got it down to, I was searching for people born a certain year, departed a certain year, lived in Liverpool. I was looking for Jews. And I found these search results that are all given names. There are no surnames. If you're searching these people by surname, you're not going to find them. Now, in this case, I actually had the clarity of mind to save the image. And you can kind of see why they don't have surnames in it. Now, I can see some letters here. They could have put those in, but I don't remember anything on this page having even just the first letter for the surname. So in this case, they didn't whiten the background, but it's faded in time, unfortunately. So it's going to be really hard to find if your people are on here. You really need to find the New York side of this list, I think, to verify you've got the right people. So here's a guy I was researching named Harry Spiel. He was a little difficult sometimes. So I have his naturalization, so I have his ship information. And I went looking for his ship, and I went looking and round in circles. And I eventually searched for him. I stuck with his arrival year. I did everything else more broad, and I went with Hirsch. I think I knew Hirsch was his Hebrew name, or I was guessing it. I can't remember. And I was in a weird mood that day. I decided I was going to look at everything that looked like it was a horrific spelling error. And I looked at this first entry that looks like it says Nachlelishen. I don't know what the heck that says. And it looked like this. And this is a clear version of what it looked like. It was scanned badly. The thing is, this was indexed completely differently at ellisisland.org. I looked there just to see what they said, and it wasn't any better. The thing is, he was joining his cousin, Shmuel Spiel. This is who I was looking for. And if I hadn't had the curiosity to just look at it, because what the heck does that really say on the record? I might not have noticed this. So sometimes you have to be in a weird mood, interested in the misspellings in order to find what you're looking for. So here's some 1910 census results. This is an older search. I don't remember why I was looking in all of Portland. There might have been some other filter that just didn't show up on the screen. But as I scrolled down the page, I found people with no information at all. I don't even know why this is in the database, but they've got no names. So I don't know why they even have that. But if you're searching for any of these people that might be on the page by their name, by their given or surname, unfortunately, you're not going to find them. So I was searching the 1930 register in England and Wales. And you can see I'm searching for Levy exact in Kensington exact. And this is my first page of search results, and none of them say Levy and none of them are in Kensington. Now, there was a time when Ancestry was spitting out a lot of garbage results, and this might have come from that time. But I'm searching exact. I expect to get a little closer to the results than these random names in different places. I wasn't even searching these locations. So here I was searching the same database for Reuben Levy. I have a Levy family there. They were also listed as Smith. And again, I have Levy as exact. And the first two give me Reuben Levy. That's good. The next three give me an R Levy. That's also not too bad since there's no other results. But then again, it just goes into like a list of random names. I don't know why it's even giving me this. So hopefully, if the people you're looking for are in results like this, they are at the top, because sometimes they get shoved down later into the list. And you might not look past all of these really bad results to see if there's anything good after it. Now, this is one of those results that they were just spitting out nonsense. Unfortunately, the left side here of what I was searching got cut off, but it's not even giving me search results. It's just like telling me databases. This is when they were having, I think they were reprogramming or something, and there was, I don't know, it was several months or a year where sometimes you just got total nonsense in your results, and sometimes that happens and you have to try again. This might be a try again another time result. You can see though that I'm searching with wildcards on a name that I was having a lot of trouble finding, and I replaced every vowel with a wildcard. There's another search I did possibly on the exact same day where at least it found me things that were matching MMDS. None of these are anything close to the name I was looking for, but at least it found me results with names in it, unlike the previous search. Back to the 1939 register, I was looking for the Gross family. And again, searching for exact, and it didn't give me anyone named Gross. And they were in there. I eventually found them in there. I don't understand some of these results, unfortunately. And I can't explain why I got them. So Massachusetts passenger list. Again, I was taking data out. I took out the surname. I took out an arrival date. Oh no, I left the arrival date. I took out maybe a birth year. Who knows how much information I took out, or if anything was left in the search results. I was down to searching arrival year, apparently. And again, I found a whole bunch of listings with either just one name or no names. And again, these are people that are in the database, and if you're searching for them, you're going to have a really hard time finding them, unfortunately. So here is, well, this is not exactly a cousin, Dave Wolf. He is the son of Anna Finkelberg. This is her second marriage. And if you look at how they're indexed here, it appears to say Finkelberg, which is even Wolf isn't right. It says Dane Waif or Wolf for Dave Wolf. I mean, even Mitzman says Witzman. So this is a very badly indexed page. But this is a great example of try a different website. Because when I went over to Family Search, I found him listed as Dave Wolf, and his mother and stepfather were indexed as Finkelberg. So this is where you go to another site and you try searching the same record set, and hopefully somebody else has done a better index of it. Let's see. So here we're doing another really broad search. We're looking for anyone named Sam, born in New York, lived in Brooklyn. I have parents here. Now, these are all very broad, but the first two Sams are in Brooklyn. Then the next one's in Manhattan. That's close. Then we have one in Chicago. Then a couple in Manhattan and back to Brooklyn. If I'm searching Brooklyn, why don't they give me the Brooklyn results first? I don't understand this part of it. They're actually weighing it towards the birth year, but I think I'd rather have it weighted towards where he lived, because he definitely wasn't in Chicago. That's a problem. So we're going to take a little journey of searching for somebody now. I'm going to show you how I found him. So I was looking for Hyman Zaitlin, and he lived in Saco, Maine. And I looked for him in all the censuses, and it gave me 0 results. And the only thing I was exact about was where he lived, because I was certain he would be there. So then I decided to search 1930 and 1940 specifically. And I did both of them here. Each search is the same, just in each census. So here I took out Saco, and I found a guy in Brooklyn. That's not who I was looking for. That's 1930, 1940, same thing, same guy. He's still in New York. He's still in Brooklyn. So I came back here and I made Saco required. And this is the same as the first search basically, but it's on each census. And again, 1940, didn't find him. 1930, I took out his surname and I said, be exact on Saco, Maine. And it found me Hyman Zaitlin. Interesting. 1940 found me Hyman Zachlin. Well, it turns out that these two are the guy I was looking for. Now here I can see why they did not get Zaitlin indexed correctly. That was a tough one. Now, if I'd done something like ends with search, I might have found him, but Ancestry has trouble with ends with search when you're trying to narrow down your search. Like I'll search something and I'll get, thousands of results, and I'll try to narrow it down. Maybe I'm working on a name that ends in ski, for example, and then I'll say ends with ski, and it starts a brand new search, and it starts with that. So whatever results I have, it now gives me so many more results, it's useless. Unfortunately, that's one of the quirks of the Ancestry search. I haven't tried that lately, but I doubt they've changed that. And the 1940 census, he clearly is listed as Zachlin. So this is why I was not finding him as Zaitlin in either census. And I went over to Family Search and I found some records of him as Hyman Zaitlin. I think all of these are him, but not the census. And again, I went without the surname and I said specifically Saco, Maine. And in my first 3 results, it found me Hyman Zachlin and the Hyman Zaitlin, which are the 2 correct records. And just for fun, I went over to my heritage to see what would happen. And I searched without the surname and I said specifically Saco, Maine. And it looks like my first 4 results 3 of them were the right guy because there weren't a lot of Hymens in Saco, Maine, I guess. And MyHeritage had the 1940 census, again, as Zockland, he was a little further down the list. But they also found me this ad in one of the school yearbooks, which I thought was pretty cool, even though he's, this is a guy that's so collateral to me, like one of his kids married one of my distant cousins, but these are still cool things to find. And that brings us to the conclusion of my main tips for how to search when you're having trouble finding the people that you're looking for, and hopefully they're in the record somewhere and you just need to search different ways, and hopefully you will be able to find more of the people that you're missing. And sometimes, you know, one of my tips is wait a little while until more stuff comes online, but hopefully that will happen too.
Great, thank you, Banai. That was great, lots of tips. And there is a handout. So we lost Alex. So we're not having technical difficulty, we're just having a difficult technical. But so I'm the host, so I'm monitoring the chat and everything that's going on. Hopefully he's trying to get back in. But anyway, so we're still here and we still have lots of time. So if anybody has questions, you can either I think on the participant list you can raise your hand. I'm on the thing. No, or one of the reactions or something. Oh, you can raise your hand, right? So you can raise your hand and we can unmute you if you have any questions. On the YouTube too, if anybody has any questions, you can type them on YouTube or ask them. I don't see anybody. Okay, so there's some on the chat. So Roberta, you just can't physically get onto the National Archives site. Is that a today thing, or I don't know if that's just somebody's trying something right now. All right, so Lee Jaffe has a question about transcribing handwritten records. So how would they check, I guess, double blind, or, you know, and then what do they do for blank entries? Is there a way to go in and
I'm sure each group that does indexing has something they should be doing. And those blank entries, I just look at those and wonder how they even ended up in the database, but they do, they get past somebody. Maybe people don't look very carefully and they just upload everything they have as quickly as possible.
Well, we have, oh, wait, I think we got Alex. Alex, are you there? Anyway, so anybody else have questions? I mean, it could be more general genealogy questions too. We have other experts on the line, if you know, with questions who can answer for you. Anything more generic, or okay, Harold. Let's see, Harold has to unmute. Okay, let me unmute you. Okay.
I wanted to ask you, I've been having a hard time finding this Wiener. Is so impossible to find. My cousin, his grandfather was Isidore Wiener, his wife was Ida Wiener, and they lived in Kearney, New Jersey, but it's spelled different if you do sound X and stuff. Can't find if he died in 1932. I know that. I found his death certificate in New York, even though, but he's buried in New Jersey. The family did live in New Jersey, but can't find the boat record of them or his wife. And I see in 1910, but they spell Wiener different ways. When he lived in Kearney, he was a shoemaker, but can't find him.
It's possible that their name was different on the ship list.
That's what I think.
It's possible it was just longer. Maybe you do a starts with kind of a search, or you know, let's see, he's probably not Isidore on the ship list. Do
probably.
you have their Hebrew names? Did I
No.
mention this? I meant to mention it.
Do
When
have-
I'm searching ship lists, I like to search by the Hebrew names because like in America, our English names and our Hebrew names might have no relation to each other at all. You just maybe named after different people. But on the time of the Ellis Island, on those ship lists, usually the Hebrew name and the Yiddish name and the Polish name, they're all very similar if they're not exactly the same. And I remember searching for a client's ship list once, well, for their ancestor ship list, and we had a document that she was saying, I think she said what date they arrived. She was a baby. So the date might have been a little off, but she said, you know, I arrived with my mother and all these siblings, and I had the hardest time finding them until the client got back to me. Her name was Pauline. And I was searching names that started with P, like I have a Pauline in my family who was Pearl on her ship list. And when the client told me that her Hebrew name was Hasia, as soon as I put that into the search, I found the whole family. So if you can search by what their Hebrew names were, you might have a better chance of finding them.
Okay, I'm gonna unmute George Richard. George, do you have a question? You gotta unmute yourself now. Can you unmute? Alex, are you on? We get George to unmute or?
I asked him to unmute and let me people look.
Have you ever used
Oh.
a probated will to find people? Very interesting process,
I have seen
Especially-
such things.
especially in a foreign country. I just did one in the Czech Republic. And surprisingly enough, in the Czech Republic and the United States, they all work the same. And that sometimes you will also get a correct spelling because the person wrote the will himself and used the correct spelling that he was using or did use. Because they have to, the father's name is there and everything else, and you may get a different spelling than you would ordinarily look for. And I found a couple of relatives that way.
Well, I definitely haven't seen a probate record in another country yet, but that sounds like
And I
a
just
great
did it.
idea.
Just did it about 6 months ago.
I know I have a friend who was researching some families from the same town that he was from, and he got the probate record for one of them and found a whole bunch of relatives listed in it and discovered that there were at least 3 different brothers that used 3 different surnames because
That's what I'm getting at.
that far back too.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at.
Okay. Steve Eckers, you can
Yes.
unmute yourself. Hi.
Are there any files or indexes of police incidents reports, the sovereign state of Brooklyn, and going back to the late 50s, early 60s?
I don't really know. That sounds like something that should exist, maybe. You might also look in newspapers to see if there's police reports printed in newspapers.
I'm trying to think. Alec Veretti was on before, but I don't see him anymore. I'm trying to think if anybody in our group would know the answer to that too. All right, if anybody knows, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Steve, Madeline's suggesting trying newspapers too.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna have Nolan. Hello, Nolan.
Hi, thanks, Bonnie, and thanks, Banai. I know, and a bunch of people mentioned that Ancestry has a mechanism for adding comments if you should find a record that you think is wrong. And I know you found, obviously, a lot of records that you believe are either incorrect or incomplete. My question is, once somebody does enter a comment like that, can the record now be found based on the comments that they put onto that record? Or is it just a notation on the side of the record and you still can't find it unless you go through all the things that you did in order to find them?
Oh yeah, if someone has corrected the spelling of the name, certainly you can find it much easier by searching the name, when you correct the name. I don't know if it has to go through an approval process before it works, but I know I've sent some in myself, and I've definitely found some search results and looked at what the initial index said, and then you see it like in brackets where somebody has corrected it, and you realize I just found it on somebody else's correction.
Do the other sites have that as well? Family Search, MyHeritage?
MyHeritage does have that. I don't think I've used it on theirs yet, but I'm pretty sure they have that. And Family Search, I don't know if they have it yet, but they've been talking about adding it. So they might have it, or they might have it soon, hopefully.
Great. Thanks very much.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm going to read some things from YouTube. So first, Jennifer Mendelson is just commenting about the Wiener problem, that if they were naturalized in New Jersey, many of those records are not online. And then there's another question here that somebody's searching for a name, happens to be Ingberg with an I, and they're finding people named Engberg with an E or Klingberg, K-L-I. So they don't match the specific family info. How can I know if these are the same family?
That is sometimes the basic question of genealogy. I found a guy with the same name or a similar name. How do I know if it's the right guy? And it's just a matter of comparing the information with what you already have and trying to figure out if it is. One of the ways I often verify the right people is by their address. Now, when I first started researching, I didn't keep track of those. And at a certain point, I decided those are really important. And I went back through everything I had done and added all of the addresses that I had for people in censuses and any other record they had. And by doing that, now I have all of their addresses right in my database. And if I find a record and I'm not sure it's them, and I can look at the database, and if I find the same address, I can assume it's the same person, because the chance that there's two people with the same name with maybe the same age at the exact same address is unlikely.
Yeah, I use that as an example too, because in America, it was a Sam Goldberg, and every subsequent person was coming to their brother, Sam Goldberg, who was a tinsmith in Newark, New Jersey. And so that's how I knew it was my family, because that was my tinsmith.
It also helps if they have a job like tinsmith, something other than like merchant or peddler, which a lot of people were. It's good to have a unique job.
Yeah, and the funny thing was, so he was the first one to come in, right? So of course he wasn't Sam Goldberg, he was Shia, Kutlebratz, but on his ship manifest, he was a tinsmith.
Well, that's good too.
And it was like, that was an amazing thing for me, because I knew I had the right guy. The name was completely, yeah. Okay, let's see. Oh, maiden names too. Jeff's saying try mother's maiden names.
Oh, on ship lists, I have seen this. It's especially for Galicianers, I think, because in Austria they had laws that a lot of that they had to have a legal marriage between the parents for the children to take the father's name. And for some reason, the Jews, I don't know if they weren't allowed to have that kind of a marriage, they would have a religious marriage. And then the kids, when they're in the records, they're listed under the mother's maiden name. And I actually researched someone that it looked like they were stuck under their grandmother's maiden name. Like they had been the family was just at the right time that they were in that predicament for 2 generations. And their ship list listed the grandmother's maiden name, but as soon as they got here, they started using their father's name. That is a good tip, though, trying the mother's maiden name.
And I think definitely most of our immigrant ancestors, the ship first name would have been like the Hebrew, don't look for an English name, right? Don't look for the Sam, look for the Shalom or the Shalom. Or,
unless they stopped in England long enough to change their name there. Like my Wilson family, they did have more, they had anglicized names on the ship list by then. Whereas if they had come directly from Europe, he probably would have been Moishe, And I don't know what Rose would have been. She could have been Riza or something. But instead they were Morris and Rose and Samuel and Jane. But most of them come directly from Europe, so they would have the other names, which are usually similar to the Hebrew names.
Yep. Okay. So it's coming up on 3:30. We still have some time if anybody has any questions. I'm just going to remind you that our next meeting is June 16th, and we have Debbie Wang, who's going to talk about presenting your family history. So that'll be good. That is one of the recorded JGS lectures, but still relevant. If anybody has info they want to share, something they found, maybe an interesting database. I know I had mentioned it last month and Randy posted again that Ancestry's Ellis Island, the ship manifests have added a lot of more searchable fields. So if you haven't found somebody, it's a good time to go back and try looking again. Or you can go look and find out that, like my 12-year-old grandfather was 4'9". So he's indexed at 4'9". that would be useful, but it's just fun.
I wonder if they did that because MyHeritage did it, but that shipless happened to be one of the things I used MyHeritage search for. The MyHeritage, the record matches are great, but I'm not thrilled with their search. Sometimes the exact match is halfway down the page and everything before it is not a match. And I've seen that and I don't like that, so I don't use their search very often, but when I can't find it on other sites, I'll use theirs, especially for shipless. I was searching for a couple of sisters. I wasn't even sure which one arrived first, and I tried all kinds of variations on their names, including their American names. And I did find the ship list for the second one because I found the first one with her American name as the person she was joining. I never found the ship list for the first one arriving though, but I did find that on MyHeritage. And another thing about searching different sites is each one takes the name you're searching and processes it differently and finds different results. Sometimes I go to MyHeritage and I search a weird name and it finds me, it doesn't find what I'm looking for, but it gives me completely different search results. And maybe I'll go search those on the other sites. So I'm like playing the different search algorithms off of each other to try to find things. I don't know if I can remember a time that actually worked to find the ship list, but I've tried it. So it may have worked. It may work for someone.
Bonnie?
Yes.
I'm having some difficulty with family search. This is a technical question. When I go to the first page where you start your search, I have a family member that keeps on coming up every time I open family search. And I have not been able to get rid of this notation. I can't get I have to go through getting rid of his name and then getting rid of his wife's name and his mother and his father and everything that I've added in on a list so I can start from fresh. Then the next time I start to get someone else's name, there is his name again in the search. And I've tried, I've called LDS and they spent a half an hour on the phone with me and they said, oh, they took care of it. And sure enough, the next day, same problem. I don't know whether anybody else has had that problem.
Doesn't sound familiar. I had somebody merge someone with one of my ancestors who definitely wasn't the same guy. And that's a whole challenge to disconnect them in their tree.
Yeah, Nolan's suggesting clearing your cache. Maybe that's something. Yeah,
I could try opening another account, I guess.
Well, can go into your browser settings and try clearing the cache and the memory, and then restarting the browser and seeing, sometimes something gets stuck in the bookmarks that breaks things.
Yeah, I know.
And it could also be an autocomplete.
I have no idea.
If you have whatever browser you're using, use a different browser. have a different one installed. So if you're using Internet Explorer, use Chrome. If you're using Chrome, use Firefox.
Good idea. I will try it. Thank you.
So somebody's asking on YouTube if they have old unidentified photos. Do you have any places to recommend to share them?
There used to be a site, I can't remember what it was called, where people would do that, but lately everyone
That is
does that on
dead?
Facebook.
Oh, Dead Fred or?
Dead Fred,
something
yeah,
like
I think that was it. But a lot of people share photos on Facebook and ask, does anyone recognize anyone? I don't know that anyone would recognize your own relatives, but maybe you have cousins that show up there. But sometimes I've seen people ask, does anyone recognize this military uniform, or can someone date this? And sometimes you might get clues. It's hard to identify people in old pictures that you don't know who they are, but maybe you can get a clue to narrow it down a little at least.
And I would just also suggest add all your photos to Google Photos or because they'll do facial recognition. And I've had people who they group the photos together. I'm like, oh yeah, that is the same. Sometimes it's wrong or it's a relative. Or it's like I had someone who it's like, oh yeah, that is him when he was like under 10, and I have photos of him from when he's 30 and 50. And once Google suggests, I'm like, oh yeah, that is him. So just, and maybe that won't help, but just if you have other photos, it doesn't hurt to see what Google thinks who should go together.
Now, when MyHeritage started the facial recognition, I remember trying theirs, but I gave them a really hard test and they didn't pass it, unfortunately. I don't know if they've improved.
So I didn't
since then.
take
I
one.
hope they
I
do.
will take.
Bonnie?
Yep.
Hi. Is there any my grandparents came from the old country into Canada, from Canada to New York. Is there any sort of records? I have to assume it's railroad. Would there be any records that's a border crossing?
Well, there's definitely, I think, Detroit and I want to say St. Albans, depending on where they came through.
Okay. Well, they came from Montreal.
Okay.
So
There's also, I think it's called Rouge Point or something, crossing. Back when I was looking for that, nobody had any of the records from it, but I think there are some now on Ancestry. I don't think, the last time I checked, they didn't have the years I needed for who I was looking for. But there were a bunch of different places people could cross, especially by something like train. And it's just a matter of figuring out where those records are.
okay, thank you.
All right, Harold has another question.
Thank you. It's not a question. I found my family on the border crossing that came through Canada. It was when I first started with it, and I was going to the archives in, Nara in New York, and they came in as Kravetz, and my grandfather was Eliyahu, and he came with his mother in 1911. So, and their dad came in 1909 to Newark, New Jersey. So, or was it 1909? But the boarding crossing, like you said, and it was on Ancestry, and you have to do different names because it could be not the same names. But I found them on border crossing. That's.
Okay, so there's another YouTube question. I wish I knew this person's name. Their handle is Thoughts on Everything. Anyway, they're asking, where is the best place to donate historic items?
Local historical society. Sometimes genealogy societies take things, a local museum, or it depends what the items are. If they're old books, maybe a library.
Yeah, I remember I was talking to a friend last summer or 2 summers at the conference, and she had like a wedding dress, and those kinds of things are hard,
Oh,
But I had something I wanted to mention at the opening, and I apologize. I skipped over it. So one of the things that we're doing is a memorial plaques project, through Jewish Gen. So I actually had an email from one of our members this week who told me that his synagogue was closing down, one of the ones in Elmont, and he asked where could they donate their papers. So I suggested to him the Center for Jewish History, because I do know that they have papers from defunct New York City synagogues. I don't know how far out they go if they take Long Island, but that was my suggestion. But then I also was thinking, well, now you have a synagogue closing down with all these wonderful Yister plaques on the wall, and those will be removed and disposed of potentially, unless they merge with another synagogue and they take them. But the information on them is crucial, and then we'd love to add that to the Memorial Plaques database. So I absolutely suggested to him, find out if there's, a database that you have at the synagogue, and hopefully we can put that, Nolan, you'll be happy for the Memorial Plaques database. But yeah, we should follow up on that, Nolan. Make sure we don't lose that information. So, but that's happening all over the place with synagogues closing down, and you're gonna need places to deposit things like that.
there was a story about that in Chicago, that someone had a storage unit full of those.
Wow.
Wasn't it a few years back, maybe? Yeah, the archive in Cincinnati, the American Jewish Archives. I have a distant cousin who left family newsletters there.
Mhm. Yeah, I want to do that one day. My family belonged to Rodef Shalom in Manhattan, and I want to go back and read the newsletters from 1900, 1910, 1920. I'd love to be able to just parse through them and see, acknowledgements of family events and things like that. That would be fun. Fran, hello, let me unmute you. Go ahead, Fran. Can you unmute yourself now?
Yes, okay. Records were also lost with burial societies. They were also ended up in basements and garages. And I had looked for a Bayonne burial society. That's where my great grandparents were buried from, that society. And I couldn't get the records. I traced somebody and they didn't know where any of the records were. So it becomes a bit of a problem. And then also, are they on now the old 8-inch, 5-inch, 5 1/4, 3.5? What size discs are they on? Ink fades, but the others are not readable, so it's a problem. Let me just try to lower my hand.
Yeah, the Family History Library recently added on services of different recovering old data from different size discs and digitizing old films. So if somebody has old information like that, maybe the library can help them get it off the old discs.
Sometimes you can use Evo. Evo has some of those records, but if a person died and the family went through, they just may have thrown out the records. Say, what do we need this for?
Yeah, I have a cousin who has information for 2 different cemeteries for the Rutger Society, which is where our family comes from. And I don't know what happens to that if something happens to her.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Harold.
Thank you again. I've been doing yahrzeit plaques of Newark, because when Newark had riots, a lot of synagogues either went different places, the yahrzeit plaques. I found this synagogue called Young Israel. All their plaques went into Kushner Academy in Livingston. And then I found this Jewish orphanage. It was called Hebrew Orphanage, yahrzeit plaques. And then one of the plaques from Newark went to Israel at an yeshiva. And I've been trying to get that guy to give me the pictures of the plaques. I just started talking to him. I found the guy that had that, and I found and I'm putting them up on jewishgen.org. I think it's a great thing. Thank you.
Sorry, just typing. Yeah, Nina, I'll just say it out loud. So Nina had asked, we talked about photographing another cemetery. And I know Beth David is a big one that would, would love it for us. We would love it to be done, but I don't think we're going to be able to get, permission to go as a group. So we're just encouraging people to kind of go to your family's landsmanship plot and just photograph the whole section on your own, and donated that to Joe Bar that way. But I don't think they're not really thrilled about large groups showing up in mass and photographing. So
Schedule one person a day to go.
yeah. So I'm just saying hello to Elizabeth, the person on YouTube. Her name is Elizabeth. So let's welcome Elizabeth from Michigan. So welcome. And we had a very international attendance audience today. That was wonderful. And I know Jeff plugged the book again in August. Is the book talk that we're having is called Mr. Wizard. So if you want to read the book, you'll have summer reading time now, a couple of months before the August meeting to read Jeff's novel. So if you want to take a look at that, call your library or local bookstore. Renee is mentioning Rouse's Point, New York for Canadian crossings.
That's the one I meant. I couldn't remember the name of it.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that was a train. And I had a couple from Quebec went through there.
Yeah. My grandma had a cousin who was a musician, and he ended up marrying and having a baby with a Canadian woman. So I found him crossing over a few times until he stopped doing that and claimed he didn't know where she was anymore. But that's another story.
What? Ask a question.
Yeah,
What would be the crossing point between Portland and Canada? What would be the city? Grandparents went back and forth. There was a child. The story is that there was a child there born there that died, and then they came back, and then they were all over. But some family did stay in Portland, and so I'm wondering how would I find out those records of when they crossed over and when they, that sort of thing.
So I had this conversation yesterday. Portland, Maine, or Portland, Oregon?
Maine.
Okay.
Yeah, you can cross to Canada on both of them, can't you?
I know. My boss lives in Portland, Oregon, so I've been talking to him about that. But yeah, it's funny. I don't know the answer to that. To somebody? Oh, Halifax, maybe. That one, yeah.
I don't know. Well, Halifax is quite large.
Okay.
No, Halifax is part of Nova Scotia. So Halifax is the most northern portion of Nova Scotia. So I don't think it's Halifax. You might come in at Halifax, but they were already here, and they went from New York to Portland, and then to Canada, and then back again, and then back to New York, and then to Ohio, and they perambulated a lot. So I don't know where there's a crossing.
Oh, yeah. Well, and Fran, somebody's suggesting maybe they took a ship from Halifax to Boston as opposed to a train.
I don't have them in Boston at all. I have the family in Portland.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. And then all of them but one sister went to Cincinnati. Why, I have no idea. But like 10 offspring went to Cincinnati, and one sister stayed in Portland, Maine. That's how I know the family was in Portland.
Yeah, well, there were a lot of Jews in Cincinnati.
Oh, there were, and a lot of them are Blooms. So if anybody's a Bloom in Cincinnati, you may be related to me.
Okay. I'm gonna.
Maybe one of them got a job or something, and the others just said, "Hey, my relative is there. I'll go there."
If you ever have any relatives in Cincinnati, there's a book about the Walnut Hills, and like every burial in that cemetery. This is like the most amazing book because
What
it's,
is it?
it's called Hamilton County, Ohio Burial Records from the
Okay, that's
Walnut.
where they were, right, they were in Hamilton County.
So they have, it's all listed alphabetically, and then there's an index in the back where it's cross-referenced. So if somebody's like buried and it's like their maiden name, they cross-reference it. You should see what I've done. I have gone through this book. I don't know if you can see, I highlighted everyone that I've entered in my day.
And the funny thing is that you wouldn't think of Kentucky, but Kentucky is very close to Hamilton County. So some of them moved to Kentucky for a little bit and then they moved back. I mean, no wonder I never found them. I mean, I didn't find them. Someone else found them, and actually was found through my heritage. And I was hooked up with a cousin, a second cousin, or a couple of times removed, and that I found out there was a huge family where I only knew about 2 people in that family. So it was very exciting.
What do we got? And Nolan's plugging that he's doing the tip of the month next month. That was good because I think I got away without doing one this year, but I hosted every meeting. I was plugging along.
Oh, that hand keeps on going up.
Oh.
There's a little gremlin in there.
Anybody else? Coming up on 4, so we're winding down. We want to thank you for joining us. It is dwindling. We did top off over 90 people. Now we're up about half, so we've lost a few. And thank you to everybody on YouTube. Thanks for the questions. For Elizabeth and Jennifer and Rich, all the people on YouTube. And Melanie was on there. So that was good. Okay. Anybody else has any?
Great.
Yeah. Anybody has any generic questions about JGSLI or meetings or conferences or something they
Actually,
found?
Bonnie, yeah, sorry, I just had a quickie because I'm doing this thing for the first time. Is that I'm, in September, like I said, I'm going to Beth David anyway because I'm doing, personal as well as research for a client. But I mean, how are they about like letting people just, if I went in there to photograph, say, my great grandfather's grave because I need to check his name, how are they about letting individual people, go in there and just take pictures? Are they going to get all whatever about that? Or
Nolan, you want to answer that?
Yeah, it's usually not a problem. If you go in and, first of all, these are big cemeteries, so unless maintenance crews are out there or there's an actual burial going on in the area, nobody's going to notice. But if anybody were to stop you, I would just tell them that, this is where your relatives are buried and you're taking pictures of the headstone so you can translate the Hebrew. And I don't think it should be a problem.
okay.
And you can go into the office, and they will look things up for you.
Yeah, well, I'm going to try and get a map too of so I'm not wandering because I know it's a huge cemetery. I don't want to be wandering around there aimlessly. But if anyone has any, I mean, I'm not going till mid-September, so it's quite a ways off. But if anyone has a grave they want me to take a look at, I'm happy to just, do that while I'm in the neighborhood, kind of. So.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'm also going to Temple Israel Cemetery in Hastings on Hudson because that's where the vast majority of my family is buried. So I'm going to kind of try and find a way to combine 2 different cemeteries. Hopefully, maybe more, but it's going to be a crazy trip. But anyway, but like I said, I'm those 2 I'm definitely going to. So anybody, has anything they want me to do while I'm in that neighborhood, those 2 neighborhoods, I'm happy to do it. Just let me know.
I'm just suggesting just watch the holidays in September, right? With all the Jewish holidays.
Yeah, I've got to kind of pay attention to those too. But those are kind of my plans. I mean, I'm pretty sure that my dates don't fall between those holidays, but but that's good to know. Thanks.
Nina, after the next Crowbar update, which should be next month in June, check the database again because I can tell you that we have a number of updates from some cemeteries in Hastings on Hudson. I know Mount Hope Cemetery and a bunch of sections from that one, so I don't know about the one that you mentioned, but
Yeah, I think Temple Israel is pretty close to it. I mean, I haven't been there in a long time, but
so just check Jobar before you go because you might be surprised that it's possible it's going to be uploaded next month.
yeah, no, that's true. But I actually have to go there I have to talk to people anyway because we have an issue where we think my grandmother bought enough plots, or she may or she may not have bought enough plots for the family. So I'm going to actually go and try and, talk to people as well, because my dad was like, well, since you're going up there, can you talk to people? Because we have to figure out if we need to buy extra plots. And if so, we may not do it there. We may just have the rest of us be buried here, where here being DC, Maryland, Virginia, where we all live. Because we had my grandmother, in her rather idealistic view of the world, shall we say, bought some plots for the family, but we don't think she bought enough. And so I'm actually going to go, while I'm there, I'm going to take care of some personal family business as well, and actually photograph some of the headstones, because some of the ones, I mean, I'm not sure if they're clear or they're whatever. So I want to I want to take care of basically two different things while I'm there. So and certain names, I mean, like there are people like my step great grandfather who's buried in there, and I need to get his tombstone information because I'm trying to use him to find out certain things about my great grandmother. It's like, you can't find your female relatives, use the men in their life, and that kind of thing. So, I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff going on there, but yeah, it's kind of a long process, but thanks anyway. Yeah, I'm going to check on there and see because whatever I can find that'll save me time is also good. So thank you.
And I'm looking at the calendar. So September 19th is our September meeting, and we don't know yet if it's going to be, if we're going to be able to get back into the Plainview YJCC. So we will definitely keep everybody posted on what the situation is with in-person meetings. For those locally, like I think the German group meets at the VFW hall, and I believe they're going to start doing in-person meetings in September. The Irish and Italians meet at the Bethpage Public Library, and so they're waiting to see if they're going to be allowed in. So we don't have a definitive answer from the Y yet. It's a wait and see. So we will let you know once we can start having in-person meetings and what if any restrictions would be, and whether in terms of vaccinations or head counts. But I guess we wouldn't want to have a meeting where we can only have, only a certain number of people, then turn people away at the door. That doesn't seem to make sense. So I guess we'd have to wait until it's opened for the full group, I guess. But we're all in that wait and see game. So, we will wait and see.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of groups are in that situation too. I mean, I'm also part of the Jewish Genealogical Society of Greater Washington, and it's the same problem. We can't, all these, I mean, different jurisdictions have crazy rules about what you can and cannot do. And with DC, with the local group, JGS, GW, you're dealing with DC, Maryland, and Virginia. So it gets, three different areas, three different jurisdictions, and God only knows how many different rules. So yeah, it's crazy. Whatever.
All right. So it's coming up on 4. So again, I want to thank everybody for joining us, and thank Banai so much for her wonderful information and tips. And there is a handout that will go out to everybody who registered for the meeting and will be up on the members site. So thank you. And I think, Anne, we're putting your hand out there too, right? It's gonna be, okay, so we'll have 2 handouts. So, all right. Well, I just want to thank everybody again.
Yep,
And
thanks.
have a happy Memorial Day. Enjoy your 3-day weekend next weekend.